Major Hurricane Beryl expected to slam the Yucatan Peninsula tonight on today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for July 4th. Hurricane Beryl, still a very powerful major hurricane as it makes its closest pass to the Cayman Islands this morning. It's the 23rd storm to form around the world. Well, in fact, it was the 22nd. Chris was the 23rd a few days ago, and it's still the only system active, although there's a couple of others that could develop in the next few days. It's day 34 of Atlantic hurricane season, and it doesn't take me to tell you what a start we've had to it with Hurricane Beryl, and it is still headed towards the Yucatan Peninsula and still a powerful storm, although being quite heavily sheared by wind shear, of course. An area of interest behind it, 96L, still with a 30% chance of development following in Beryl's footsteps. In the Eastern Pacific, there's a very brief window here for a potential development, an area of interest around 50% because we really can't call it. It's got very short amount of time, but it's looking pretty good on satellite, so we're giving it a half chance of forming. In the Western Pacific, there's no areas of interest right now, and none on the horizon either, at least in the next 7 days, but there's quite a lot of cloud cover in the area and a few thunderstorms blowing up across the Philippines. Extending into the northern Indian Ocean, we've got a lot of cloud cover here as well, a few thunderstorms blowing up all around India and around the Indochina region, but no areas of interest from a tropical cyclone perspective. So apart from the Atlantic and just that system in the Eastern Pacific, it is all quiet elsewhere around the globe. And for what it's worth, the Southwest Indian Ocean, a little look at it right now, nothing going on here. We're entering the new 2024-25 season now, so the new naming list is in operation if we did get an off-season storm early on. Well, let's take a look at Beryl then. Category 3, passing 62 kilometers south of Grand Cayman. It's 591 from Cozumel, 623 from Cancun, 720 from Chetumal, and 958 from Campeche. All of these locations could be affected by substantial storm force winds, and some of those could get hurricane force winds. The indication so far is that the storm is likely to continue west-northwestwards and make landfall somewhere along the coast of the Yucatan south of Cozumel, possibly near Tulum. Hurricane warnings remain in effect for the Cayman Islands and for the east coast as far north as Cancun. Satellite imagery right now looks like this. So the storm, as you can see, is quite a distance away from how well it was looking in the last few days, and we're obviously thankful for that. Additionally, the core of the storm should be passing just south of Grand Cayman, but they will probably be getting hurricane force winds this morning as the storm passes by. It literally in the last hour or so, it will have made its closest pass to the island and is now continuing west-northwestwards. The next port of call in terms of land areas will be the coast of the Yucatan and or Cozumel. It is still a powerful Category 3 storm. Recon planes are inside it right now, and they're getting readings indicative of maybe 115 miles per hour, perhaps still 120, which is what the last National Hurricane Center advisory went with, and a pressure estimate inside the storm of around 968 millibars. After we went off the air last night, the storm did fortuitously move a little bit further towards the west, which may have spared a few parts of the western tip of Jamaica from the most powerful winds, but quite a few parts of the coastline will have experienced 140 mile per hour winds in South Jamaica last night. Looking at more satellite imagery then, you can see its appearance. East and southeast side looking really bad actually. Latest recon only got an SFMR of 65 knots in that side, but in the northwest side it's still pushing up and above 100 knots. You can see there from the Cuban radar the eye wall shrinking out of shot there, passing very close to Grand Cayman. This is Invest 91E, and it is a blob, and it's looking quite good, it has to be said. We've got no real evidence that it's got a circulation, but it looks decent. And this is Invest 96L, a quick look at it right now into daylight hours, and not looking very good in contrast there. Really not got anything of a circulation, but still something to watch. It's going to hang in there for the next few days. Here's the east coast of the United States out over the western Atlantic, and a very large low pressure system there, but not particularly strong. And then we've got these two systems. It just shows how small Beryl is there in the Caribbean now. It has shrunk quite a bit overnight due to that wind shear. And here's a look off the coast of Africa. Nothing going on right now, no disturbances to speak of, and a lot of dry Saharan dust. Eastern Pacific, little look again at that system off to the left hand side. That's 91E, but apart from that, the Eastern Pacific is looking pretty dead. If that system doesn't form, it will be the latest start to the Eastern Pacific hurricane season in the satellite era. Western Pacific showing those thunderstorms blowing up along the west coast of the Philippines, and quite a few other little storms further south over towards the North Indian Ocean. Huge amounts of convection all across the whole region there. Lots of storms and rain showers all around the area. Monsoon season in full swing, and in the Arabian Sea a few little bits here and there as well, but not too much. Looking at sea surface temperatures right now, look down there towards the bottom, really showing a bit of a La Nina still in effect there, but the sea surface temperatures in the Eastern Pacific pushing 30 degrees in one or two spots off the coast of Mexico. Very warm still ahead of Beryl, although not quite as much now. It'll be more later on actually. Look along the coast of Texas, temperatures over 30 degrees Celsius by quite a way, and off the coast of Louisiana, pretty much all the US Gulf Coast. The Western Pacific, extremely warm waters as well, all around the Philippine Islands. Of course, not many storms have taken advantage of that so far, just the two so far this season, which is a little bit below average. 30 to 32 degree temperatures there. North Indian Ocean, a few hot spots off the coast of West Bengal and Odisha, and in the Arabian Sea, a few hot spots as well out over the water, up to 30 degrees. Compared to average, it looks like this. The Eastern Pacific is quite close to average with a few cool spots there down near the equator. Western Pacific is above average in quite a few spots, and in the Atlantic it is generally around 2 degrees above average where Beryl is, dropping to about 1 in the Bay of Campeche because of recent storms, and then up to about 2 degrees above average again off the coast of Texas. Elsewhere in the Atlantic where Beryl was first forming, those temperatures still very warm as well. Oceanic heat content continues to dissolve actually in the Eastern Pacific, only just getting small amounts now by the looks of things, but the Westpac is still on fire with the amount of oceanic heat content down there off the coast of the Philippines into the Philippine Sea over Micronesia. Huge amounts of energy. Look at how Beryl managed to do round Jamaica over those very high oceanic heat content values, and they are still very high for the storm right now, into those reds for a good while yet until tonight. And a hot spot too in the Gulf of Mexico, a lesser one to its west as well. Beryl might still get a few little helping hands. So the GFS, we know, like many models, has been hopeless with this storm so far, but the latest forecast calls for it to move through the Yucatan and then on towards a landfall. It's been quite consistent with this now, as have other models. They seem to homed in on a landfall very close to the border with Texas. There's that first landfall again just south of Tulum, moving inland, becoming a tropical storm afterwards, and then strengthening again as it approaches the coast of Texas and Mexico, and probably becoming a Category 1 hurricane there. We're currently forecasting a high-end Category 1 by the time it makes its final landfall near Brownsville. Once again, looking at rainfall expectations then for the next 7 days, and you can see that this storm will produce a significant trace, but also just at the very end of this loop you'll see another little area appear near Houston. That is actually 96L, possibly developing into a brief tropical storm. So rainfall from both of these systems in the next 7 days, maximum possible, looking like this, around 12 inches in northern Mexico, getting close to that in Texas as well, just to the west of Houston, and over the Yucatan Peninsula we're expecting nearly 6 inches, 150 millimeters, and also 6 inches in the Cayman Islands. Looking in the longer range, you just saw 96L there moving into Texas, and then we see what happens in the Eastern Pacific, where there may be a second system that develops there, going on for the 13th, 14th of July, so that may just be a little bit of life in the Eastern Pacific after that first system, whether that one forms or not. But it will be generally much quieter after Beryl flees the scene, but for the time being, of course, it's still very busy. Western Pacific then during this period as well, not too much to talk about, but towards the end of this run, towards day 10 this is, you will see a couple of disturbances form. There's one there to the right hand side approaching the Philippines, a very tiny potential tropical cyclone, and there it is actually becoming a tropical storm at the end. And on the left you can see a very large system trying to find its feet off the coast of Vietnam, possibly becoming a disturbance there in the South China Sea. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all our products as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. Of course, we may be a bit delayed with requests with Beryl and whatever else may form, and we're still waiting for Hone in the Eastern Pacific, the Central Pacific I should say, but that's pretty irrelevant right now. Well, in the Scilly range, we continue to watch that little system moving into the Philippines, and then a larger system making landfall in Vietnam there, and then maybe a third tropical cyclone out over the very open waters of the Western Pacific, actually moving through two little systems maybe there at the end, one near Guam and another one just off to the east. So maybe a quartet of systems in the Western Pacific if the long range modeling is correct. That tiny system through the Philippines though takes a very odd track down to the southwest at first, and then peeling off northwestwards and through to the South China Sea, although it loses a lot of its momentum by then. Well, on this day it was much busier times in the Eastern Pacific, and Eastpak fans will be looking back on this with a fair amount of nostalgia, I guess. July 4th, 1984, 40 years ago today, we had Hurricane Elida just coming off its second peak as a Category 3. It peaked as a Category 4. Douglas was also a powerful storm, and it had weakened to a depression. And Fausto was a tropical storm that had formed. We were already 6 names into the season compared to this year, which was none. Typhoon Alex made landfall in Taiwan yesterday and was now grazing the coast of China as a tropical storm. Back to today then, Beryl of course being the main feature. The next name in the Atlantic is Debbie. In the Eastern Pacific it's Aletta, and in the Central Pacific it is still Hone. We are code red for Beryl, and we have more live streams coming up. There is a stream at just after this bulletin at 8 AM Eastern Daylight Time. The next name in the Western Pacific is Gaby, and in the North Indian Ocean it is Asna, and we are expecting to have more live coverage later tonight. So the names have switched around now in the Southern Hemisphere in preparation of the new season. The next name in the Australian region is still Robin. It's rolled over still. The Southwest Indian Ocean, the first name will be Ancha, and in the South Pacific it will be Pitta. That's all from today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. If we're not live, we'll be back again tomorrow.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.